Okay. What about others? Lakshman, Satish.
Hello?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay, let me start the session. So in today's session, we'll try to focus on enable disable functionality and visible invisible functionality and how to capture selected record from table and list screen elements. In today's session, we'll focus on single record. In the coming days, we'll try to capture multiple records. So what I want to do is, here you can see there is a form screen element. Form contains collection of screen elements here. So this enable, disable, visible, invisible, these are very common functionalities. You can apply this concept on any screen element with the same approach which we are going to discuss today. Enable, disable, visible, invisible. This code can be applied on any screen element. As an example, what I want to do is I want to apply on this input fields and image screen element here. So let me take up to here. So suppose there is image screen element and there are some input fields here. So on image screen element, I want to apply visible, invisible functionality. On input fields, I want to apply enable, disable functionality. That means edit, non-edit functionality. But the same concept you can apply on any other screen element, including table, whatever. So here on image, that is on initialization, the image must be invisible. On initialization of this view, the image must be invisible. And if I click on edit button, I'll create one edit button at the bottom. So on edit action, image must be visible. So this I want to apply on image screen element. Similarly, there are input fields here. So on input fields, on initialization, input fields must be disabled. I'll create one edit button. On edit action, input fields must be enabled. So on initialization, input fields must be disabled. On edit action, input fields must be enabled. So one is disabled, another is enabled. So this is the oral requirement. Let me write it here. On initialization, the image must be invisible. On edit action, image must be visible. Similarly, on initialization, input fields must be disabled. On edit action, input fields must be enabled. And don't forget here, every screen element contains collection of properties. I've already explained this, but let me repeat here. Every screen element there will be collection of properties. And as I told you earlier, for each property, there will be two methods in general. For every screen element, there will be collection of properties. For each property, there will be two methods. One is getter method, another is setter method. Each property, there will be two methods. One is getter method, another is setter method. So getter method, this will capture value from screen element, and setter method, this is used to assign value to the screen element. Setter method, you can assign value to screen element. So don't forget these two things. So here what we need to do, on initialization, image must be invisible. On initialization, input fields must be disabled. So let me write step-by-step procedure. So step 1, you can open object view. Object view.xml file. And make sure that image field and input fields contains ID property. We are operating on image and we are operating on input fields. We want to operate on image dynamically, input fields dynamically. So that image field and input fields must contain ID property. If there is no ID property, then it is difficult to operate through controller. It's difficult to assign dynamic actions. So whichever screen element you want to apply with the dynamic actions or dynamic functionalities, then those fields must and should have ID property. In the last session, we have used ID property for most of the screen elements to capture the values. Similarly, image field also should have ID property here because I want to operate through controller. And not only that, make sure that image field contains visible property as false. Why? Because on initialization, image must be invisible. So you have to use visible property as false. On initialization, image must be invisible. So on image field, use visible property as false. And make sure that input fields contains enabled property as false. For input fields, you can use enabled property and you make it false because on initialization, input fields must be disabled. Input fields must be disabled. So on initialization, input fields should contain enable property as false. For that reason, we're going to make some changes in the existing code. So update your code as below. Image field and input fields. We'll make some changes to image field and input fields. So here you can see there is image screen element here. And this image screen element is not having ID. So let me provide ID. For example, image field or image. Use some ID, it should be unique. And input fields already contains ID property here because in the last session we were capturing the values from these fields. So ID property is available for input fields. So on just image field, try to add ID property. This was not used in the last session, so add ID property on image screen element. ID must be unique. So that is technically this one. Image field, input field should have ID property. Next, image field should have visible property as false. So here you can see image field, let us use visible property here. You can see visible property is a common property for almost all the screen elements. So on image, there is visible property. So initialization, it should be invisible, so make it false. Similarly, for input fields, you can use enable property here. Enable property, you can make it false. So here, enable property, you can use false on all these input fields. Wherever there are input fields, let me use it on those screen elements, including password field. Let me just highlight these things. So in object view.xml file, so image contains ID here and it contains visible as false. Input fields already contains ID, but we made enable as false. This is according to step 1. So we used enabled as false. So this is technically step 1. Okay, let me copy these lines. So these are the lines that we have adjusted. So let me copy from image to all these input fields. Now step 2, you can open object view.xml file and we'll try to create one button. We'll create one button with press event and we'll assign event handler. That is, you can implement below code. Create button with press event and assign event handler. For that, you can implement this code. So let me add one button here just for experimentation purpose. After all input fields, let me add one dummy label. And then let me add one button here. Button from sap.m library. Button contains text and you can provide, for example, edit fields. Type of the button, something like accept or whatever, green color button. Width, for example, 250 pixel. Press is the event. Press is the event of button screen element. You can assign event handler. For example, edit EH. You can give any name, XYZ, you can provide. In my case, edit EH. EH means event handler, but it's not compulsory. Provide EH. You can give any name. The same name should be used in controller. So this is our step 2. Create some dummy label, add one button with some text, green color button because type is accept, provide some width, press is the event. For that we are assigning edit EH event handler. So this is technically step 2. After all input fields, we have added this button screen element, which contains press event with edit EH event handler. So this is how we can assign event equal to event handler. For any screen element, even in the coming days, left side event that is assigned with event handler. This is like step 2 screenshot. Now step 3, let us implement code in controller file. Open object controller because every view contains a controller. Every view contains a separate controller. Object view contains object controller.js file. So you can implement edit EH event handler with some functionality. Okay, step 4, you can save all the files, that is view file, controller file, and run the app. You can save view file, controller file, and run the app. So edit EH is the event handler name. Go to its controller. Object view contains object controller. Worklist view contains worklist controller. When we create third view, we are going to create some more views in the coming days. So if you create third view, then third view contains third view controller. Fourth view, when you create it, it contains a fourth view controller. So every view contains a separate controller. So we are dealing with object view at this point of time. So go to object controller here. And in the last session, we have added one event handler here. Submit data event handler. We have added it to capture the values and to display values as message. So this code is written earlier. Now let me add comma separator at the end of that last event handler and provide new event handler, edit by using function keyword. So function is a JavaScript keyword to implement event handler in both ui5 or Fiori application. Function is a JavaScript keyword. You can use this to implement formatter function. You can also use it to implement event handler. So what you need to do here? So first, you need to get the reference of image screen element. You get the reference of image screen element here. Same like earlier. Same like last session. This dot get view dot by ID. Provide the ID of image screen element. ID of image is image. Provide the ID of image screen element. So after that, you can get that image reference here. You can get image reference like this. Image reference, it's like a variable, so use var keyword. It's also a JavaScript keyword to declare a variable. And you can hold a value, whichever is coming from this. After that, make image screen element with set visible method. Visible is a property, so you can use set visible method and you can make it as true here. Or in simple words, use set visible method as false, sorry, as true. Because I want to make visible as true for image, so use set visible method as true. Dynamically, this edit action is executed. So that means you can use image reference here dot set visible method. Image contains visible property, so you can use get visible or set visible. In this case, set visible is suitable. For set visible, you can directly pass true here. So for writing this, you can write it in multiple lines. You can get the view reference. You can get view reference. How to get view reference? This dot get view. You will get view reference here. You can write it in multiple lines. Instead of writing single line, you can write it in multiple lines. First line is just get the view reference. This dot get view. It will give view reference. After getting view reference, get the image reference here. That means image is a screen element. You have to get image screen element reference by using its ID. So for that, you can use view reference. You can use view reference dot by ID. Provide the ID of that image. Image is ID. So ultimately, you will get image reference here or image screen element reference, whatever. Variable name can be anything here. Make it more meaningful, we are using image screen element reference. When you use view reference dot by ID, by providing the ID of image, you'll get image screen element reference. Now, after that, you can call the appropriate method. Use set visible method as true here on image. So that means you can use image screen element reference here dot set visible, and you can make it true here because image should be visible. So we are writing it in 3 lines, step by step. First view reference, then image reference, then call set visible method. This dot get view will get view reference. By using view reference with by ID method, by providing ID of screen element, you'll get that screen element reference. By using screen element reference, you can use set visible method and you can make it true or false. It all depends. You can use it with conditions also. So you can write step by step like this, or you can write it in single line. It's up to you. It's not only for image, it can be applied on any screen element. So let me put it like this. This is multi-line syntax. This is like multi-line syntax. But what is a single line syntax? So here first get view reference. Next get screen element reference. In this case image. Then finally call the method. So this is multi-line syntax here. But you can write the same code in single line. If you want, you can use this dot get view. You'll get view reference. After that, dot by ID. Provide the ID of that screen element. For example, in this case, image screen element. After getting image screen element reference, you can call the method. For example, set visible is the suitable method here. And you can make it true or false because it's a Boolean property. So you can write it in single line. So we are trying to do everything in single line. Getting view reference, getting screen element reference, and we are calling the method. So this is like single line syntax. In standard applications also, sometimes you will find this syntax, sometimes you will find this type of syntax, but technically both are same. The purpose is same. In standard applications of Fiori, when you open controllers, sometimes you may find multi-line syntax, sometimes you may find single line syntax. And you can use your own syntax, either single line or multi-line. It doesn't matter. Purpose is same. It's like single line syntax versus multi-line syntax. Okay, let me go with single line syntax. This dot get view dot by ID. Provide the ID of image, and you can call set visible method on that image because visible is a property. Set visible is a method. Similarly, what about input fields? On input fields also, let us try the same. This dot get view dot by ID, provide the ID of input field. First input field is user ID, that's ID. Input field ID. On input field, there is enabled property. So you can use set enabled method and you can make it true here. This dot get view dot by ID. Provide the ID of next input field. All these are individual fields. So provide the ID here. And you can call set enable as true. Let me use it on other input fields as well. All input fields. These are the IDs. So on all input fields, we are just simply using set enabled as true. Set enabled is a method because enabled is a property of input field. You can call getter method, setter method. In this case, setter method is suitable. So don't forget this very basic note. For each property, there will be two methods. Getter method to capture value from screen element. Setter method to assign value to screen element. Okay, so let me test it now. You can save and run it. So this is step 3 coding inside controller. Let me run it. Okay, so it's not going to next screen. That means there is some error. It's not going to next screen, so there is error. Let me run it again. So it's not going to next screen. So press F12. When you press F12, it is saying that there is some problem. There is spelling mistake for label. Here you can see there is some problem with sap.m.label. Label, there is a spelling mistake which I've used. LABLE. But the actual class name is LABEL. So on one of the labels, there is a spelling mistake. So you can see that. It is not able to find this label class because there is spelling mistake. 404, resource could not be found. So let me correct it. So go to this view.xml file. Here you can see there is a dummy label I've used. Instead of LE, use EL label. You can save and run it. So let me click on this. It goes to next screen. And you can see image is invisible. Image is not visible on initialization. And input fields are also disabled here. You can't enter any value here. Even if I type, you can't enter because they're disabled. Now, if I click on edit button, now you can see image is visible and input fields are enabled. So you can enter the value. So you can see that. All these fields are enabled here. On edit action, the input fields are enabled, image is visible. But when you run first time, when you run the screen first time, so you can see image is invisible. Input fields are disabled. You can't enter the value in input fields. Only after clicking edit button, image is visible, input fields are enabled. You can see that. So it's working according to expectation. So this is the code, you can use it inside edit event handler. Label, Go to step 3, edit event handler. This is a functionality. So this you can try it on any screen element. It can be on table also. On table also you can apply visible functionality. Okay, let me give one assignment based on this particular topic. Here you can see what you do is just about table screen element. Just about table screen element, create switch screen element here. Create switch screen element. Switch screen element should have yes or no. So on initialization, that is default. Switch must be yes. Switch must be yes. And table must be visible. On initialization, switch default should be yes and table must be visible. So if end user selects no, then table must be invisible. If end user selects yes, then table must be visible. Which table we are trying to operate here? Just about table, create one switch screen element with yes or no. On initialization, switch should be yes, table must be visible. After that, user may select no. When user selects no on switch, then table must be invisible. If user select yes, then table must be visible. So for this, let me give one hint. On switch screen element, this is like hint. On switch screen element, what you do is use change event and assign event handler for that. On switch screen element, use change event. For change event of a switch, you can assign event handler. In event handler, you can implement the functionality. So there is a table here. What you do is create one switch screen element. Just above the table, okay, assume that this is a table. So just above the table, create one switch. Like text as table visibility. Table visibility. Yes or no. For that, use switch screen element. If S is selected, table must be visible. If no is selected, table must be invisible. If S is selected, table is visible. If no is selected, table is invisible. And default on initialization. Default on initialization, table must be visible because switch is by default S. So this is just a label and this is a screen element you have to use. Based on that, this visibility is decided. Table visibility is decided based on this table visibility with switch screen element. So for switch, technically, I think you need to use, let me check. There is a switch. This is a different switch, but here, let me check. Say suppose if I use switch above the table, just above the table, if I use switch, I think there is one event. You can see change is one of the suitable event. You can see for switch, change is a suitable event. So try to use that. For that, you try to assign event handler. So as part of hint, I have provided this must be the event for switch. Change is an event, assign event handler for that. In event handler, implement the functionality. So that table is visible, invisible dynamically. So that int have already provided. We can try the same with a different screen element here. So instead of switch, you can also use, for example, just about table screen element. Just about table screen element. Let us make this as assignment 2. In the last session, I think I've given one assignment. This is like assignment 2. This is like assignment 3. So just about table screen element, create one radio button group. Create one radio button group with 2 radio buttons. One is like show table. This is radio button 1. Second one, the text must be hide table. This is radio button 2. Inside one radio button group. Create one radio button group with 2 radio buttons. One should be show table radio button, another should be hide table radio button. On selecting show table radio button, simple, the table must be visible. On selecting hide table radio button, the table must be invisible. Very simple. 2 radio buttons in one radio button group. Show table, hide table. These are 2 radio buttons. On show table, if user is selecting show table, table must be visible. If user is selecting hide table, table must be invisible. Very simple. But for radio button group, what should be the event here? Let me just give one hint. If you are using radio button group, on radio button group, I think you can use select event. You can use select event and assign event handler. Implement functionality in that event handler in controller. So say suppose if I use radio button group just above the table, you can create separate form. Inside that you can try switch radio button group, drop down, etc. For example, if I use radio button group, the suitable event is, you can see select is one of the suitable event for handling dynamic actions. E indicates event. For radio button group, select is a event. Assign event handler to it, implement event handler in controller. So select is a event. For that, assign table visibility EH, something like that. Implement event handler in controller. So the point here is on radio button group, use select event as an event handler. That's a hint. Based on that, you can try. If you want, you can try one more assignment with the same type of functionality. Instead of radio button group, I want to use, for example, a drop-down box here. For example, I want to use a drop-down box. So just about table, screen element, create drop-down box. That is select screen element. Drop-down box is nothing but select screen element. Create with two values here. One is like show table as one of the text. Another one is hide table text. Drop-down box. Drop-down box is nothing but select screen element. That should have show table text and hide table text. Only two values. Now it's very simple. On selecting show table text, table must be visible. On selecting hide table text, the table must be invisible. So the hint here is on drop-down box. On drop-down box, that is on select screen element, use here, say suppose if I use drop-down box, just above the table, if I use drop-down box is nothing but select screen element. On select screen element, you can use one event, that is, this is a suitable event. Change is the event here. You can see this. On drop-down box, that is select screen element, it contains change events. For change event, you can assign event handler. Implement functionality inside controller for that event handler. So change is the event you have to use. Okay, so here on drop-down box, it contains select screen element. For that, use change event and assign event handler to it. All these three assignments, technically it is operated on table screen element. Table visibility, we are trying to decide based on drop-down box selection, radio button group selection, or switch selection. But the actual functionality is happening on table in all these three assignments. So that means table should have ID property in this case. Don't forget. If you want to do all these things, the table should have ID property. You should get the reference of table. On table, you can make it enable or visible or invisible by calling methods. I think you can easily achieve this. Now let me go to the next topic here. That is like, I want to capture. So here you can see there is a table, form, list, and there is a table. So what I want to do is on this table, I want to enable single record selection here. So when user selects a record, I want to capture that selected record. I want to capture a selected record here from table. Not only that, there is a list screen element. On list screen element, user can select a record, and that selected record I want to capture by writing code in event handler. And don't forget here, list and table, it contains same aggregation property, items. List and table are getting data from same entity set. List is getting data from EMP set, entity set. Table is getting data from same entity set, EMP set. And list and table also contains same aggregation property items. So in that situation, we can use one technique here. Okay, let me write capture selected record from table screen element and also list screen element. That's a requirement here. After capturing that, I want to display selected record. I want to display selected record values as a message as of today. Capture selected record from table and list and display selected record values as part of message. But in the coming days, what we do is we can pass these values backend system via OData service. After that, we can perform insert or delete or update operations with backend system. Those topics will come at later point of time. But as of today, we'll try to capture the values and we'll display the values as a message. Coming days, we can also pass values to backend OData service. We can perform insert, delete, update operations. So don't worry about future topics. Let us stick to this. Now, what's the procedure? Step 1. Step 1 is open object view.xml file. Go to list screen element. Go to list screen element. On list screen element, I think you can use one property here. So let me go to list first. So there's a list. List contains items as aggregation property. Table also contains items as aggregation property. And table is getting data from EMP set entity set, and list is also getting data from same EMP set entity set. So here on list, first of all, what I want to do is I want to use one property here, that is mode equal to. In today's session, I want to enable single record selection. So I can use single select here, either left or right, whatever. You can select any of these options. Single select left, or single select master. You can select any one of this option. Ultimately, it allows single select of a record from a list or a table. I'm using single select left, so radio button is enabled left side of your list. I'm using single select left means radio button is enabled for every record in a list left side. And not only that, I want to use one event. For list, there is selection change event. Select event is outdated. You have to use selection change event. E means event. Selection change is an event. So I can use that. For that, I can assign event handler. For example, capture record EH, something like that. So mode equal to single select left. It enables radio button left side for every record in a list. And selection change is an event. You can use it on list. We can assign event handler. For example, capture record EH. Now the same thing, you can do it on table. Go to list screen element and you can try this. Mode equal to single select left. Selection change equal to, that's the event, so you can assign event handler. Similarly, go to table. Use the same technique. On table also you can do the same. So here, go to table On table also we are using mode equal to single select left. Selection change is a event. Assign the same event handler because table list are having same aggregation property and it is also getting data from same entity set. So you can assign same event handler. Table list both are getting data from same entity set. It contains same aggregation property. So in that situation, you can assign same event handler. So here, this is what we are trying to do. Let me just highlight these options. This is technically step 1. According to step 1, on list and table, in object view.xml file, on list string element, we are using mode equal to single select left. Selection change is an event. We are assigning event handler. The same thing we are trying to do it on table. On table also mode equal to single select left. I want to enable single record selection. For multi-select, we have to use a different option. Don't worry, that will be discussed in the coming days. Selection change is an event. We are assigning event handler, same capture record EH. So this is according to step 1. On table and list, we are doing the same thing. Why? Because both are having items aggregation property. Both are getting data from same entity set. So you can use same event handler for both the screen elements. This is step 1, list and table. So this is done here. Now step 2. So don't forget here, list contains selection change event. Table contains selection change event. Okay, step 2. Open object controller.js file. Every view contains a controller. So now go to controller file, implement capture record EH event handler with some functionality. Implement capture record EH event handler with some functionality. Step 3, save all the files, view file, controller file, and run the app and test it. So here, capture record EH is an event handler. Let me go to controller. In controller, 2 event handlers are added. Let me add third event handler. Use comma separator at the end of existing event handler. That's the last event handler. Then use comma separator. Add the new event handler by using function keyword. And within flower brackets, you write the functionality. But here, in this case, capture record EH event handler is assigned to multiple screen elements. When you're assigning same event handler to multiple screen elements, it's better to use one standard parameter here, that is O event. It's better to use one standard parameter, like for example, O event. So O event will hold information of table if user is operating on table. O event will hold information of list if user is operating on list. So O event holds information of table if user is operating on table. O event holds information of list if user is operating on list. Very simple. O event is dynamic here. O event can hold information of table if user is operating on table. O event can hold information of list if user is operating on list. User can operate on one of the screen element at a time, not two screen elements at a time. User always operates only one screen element at a time, not two screen elements. So O event holds the information of table if user is operating on table. It holds information of list if user is operating on list. So let me give that simple note somewhere here. O event O event holds information of table if user is operating on table. It holds information of list if user is operating on list. Very simple, just remember this. Now what we can do is we can use here O event dot get parameter. Get parameter of something like list item. Table contains collection of list items. List also contains collection of list items. So I want to capture single selected list item here. Technically, table is collection of list items and list is also collection of list items. Why? Because here you can see list contains standard list item here. Table contains column list item here. But technically the common point is list item. List contains standard list item, table contains column list item. But ultimately, both are collection of list items here. It can be standard list item or column list item. For table, column list item. For list, it's a standard list item. So you have to get that option here. O event dot get parameter of list item. Then you will get selected list item. If user is operating on table, you will get column list item. If user is operating on list, you'll get standard list item technically. So by using this list item, you can get the complete record here. List item dot get binding context is one of the method. List item dot get binding context. So that will help you to capture selected row. Whichever row is selected, it will capture that. If user is operating on table, you'll get selected row from table. If user is operating on list, you'll get selected row from list. So you have to use get binding context as a method here on list item. Then after that, say suppose I want to capture individual values. I want to capture individual values of selected row. Then you can use selected row here. Dot get selected row dot get property. Property means OData field name you can provide. That is, for example, I want to capture user ID. And you can hold that here, where user ID. So you're trying to capture individual values of that selected row. Similarly, you can use selected row dot get property. The second field, second OData field is first name. So you can use that field name. You will be able to get individual value that is first name here. In case if you want to capture individual values, you can use selected row dot get property and provide that corresponding OData field name. So you can use the same technique for other things. Selected row dot get property. I want to capture last name also. So here we'll be able to get last name. Like that, I want to capture other individual values. I want to capture email ID, country, salary, phone number, something like that. Phone number is also part of backend table. You can also capture in the front end by providing that respective field, email ID, country, salary. These are OData fields, so they are case sensitive. Be careful. And phone. So according to OData service, you can see these are the fields: user ID, first name, last name, email ID, country, salary, phone. We're trying to capture individual values of that selected record. The field names must match here. When you're capturing individual values, you have to provide OData field names. For get property method, property according to OData service, property is nothing but OData field name. According to backend OData service, the property is nothing but OData field names here. Get property of that so-and-so field name, then you'll get its respective value. Get property of so-and-so field name, you'll get that field value. So according to backend OData service, property is nothing but the OData field name. When you use get property field name, then you'll get its corresponding value. Okay, so now we are able to capture individual values of selected row. Now that selected row can be manipulated, it can be updated, it can be deleted, it can be inserted by consuming OData service in the coming days. These values can be passed to backend system by OData service. You can insert, delete, update operations. You can perform that through OData service in the backend. But as of today, I just want to display values as a message here. You can use sap.m.messagebox. sap.m.messagebox. Messagebox is a class. In that class, there is a static method. For example, success is one of the static method. Static methods you can directly access here by providing class name dot method name. So here you can pass those values. User ID plus you can give some space. Last name, give some space. You can provide email ID, country, salary, and something like phone number. So we're just trying to print those values as a success message at this point of time by using messagebox class dot success method. Right, so let me test it first, then we'll try to give the description. So here, say suppose I'm going to list here. Now list contains radio button for every record. That is because of mode property. Single select left mode property, it is enabling radio button here. Say suppose if I select this record 1008, so that selected record is captured here 1008 Rajiv Kumar. So you can see that selected record values are captured through event handler by executing code in controller. If I select some other record, for example 1009, so that selected record is captured here. If I select, for example 1005, so that selected record is captured dynamically. Now user is operating on list here. User is operating on list. So you are able to capture selected record from the list here. You can see this. Now say suppose if I operate on table, if I go to table, now table also contains radio buttons left side for every record because of mode property. Now if I select a record in a table, for example 1012, so that selected record is captured here from a table. If I select, for example, 1007, so that selected record is captured dynamically. So now user is operating on table. So you will be able to capture selected record from a table. It can be any record. In this case, user is operating on table, so you'll get the selected record from table. Now, if user is operating on list, you'll get selected record from list here. So O event holds the information of table if user is operating on table. O event holds the information of list if user is operating on list. So one event handler you can assign to multiple screen elements if required. Okay, so everything is working fine. So let me copy these lines. Capture record event handler. That is step 2. Open controller, implement this event handler with some functionality, and this is a functionality. So what exactly we are trying to do here is give some description line by line. So in this case, you can see this is the code we have implemented, capture record Let me give the description. Okay, let me put it like this, O event. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to capture entire record individual values, and we are printing those values as success message. But technically first time, in the first line, we are capturing the list item of a table if user is operating on table. We are capturing list item from list if user is operating on list. So this is also dynamic here. O event dot get parameter and provide list item. So technically this will capture the selected list item from table, or it can be list depending upon on which the user is operating. It will capture list item from table if user is operating on table. It will capture selected list item from list if user is operating on list. Very simple. So if user is operating on table, you will get column list item. If user is operating on list, you'll get standard list item. Because standard list item represents the records in list. Column list item represents the records in table. So ultimately it will capture list item, whether it can be standard list item from list or column list item from table. Ultimately it captures selected list item. After that, we are capturing selected row by using that list item. So here we're trying to capture selected row. Capture the selected row from a table or a list associated with list item. Associated with list item. Let me put it here. Capture selected row from table or a list depending upon on which user is operating, but it is going to be associated with the corresponding list item. If it is table, you will get selected row from column list item. If it is list, it will capture selected row from standard list item. it will capture selected row from table or list associated with list item. Now after that, we are capturing individual values from that selected row. Here you can capture the selected record individual values. Capture the individual values of selected row from table or list, depending upon which user is operating. And here what we're trying to do, we're just printing the values as success message. Display values as a success message here. But in the coming days, we can pass values to backend via OData service. We are going to write additional code here. Then we can perform insert, delete, update operations by writing some further code here. In the coming days, we can also deal with multiple selected records. As of today, we are dealing with single record, but we can also capture multiple selected records. That's a different story. We have to understand some more fundamentals. At right time, we'll be discussing that. So this is how you can use capture record event handler functionality with some description. Okay, so let me just, before I stop here, in the next session, we are going to improvise this code. Okay, don't worry. I'll stop here, but in the next session, we are going to improvise capturing all these different values from different screen elements. Capturing values here, we are doing it on table list. In the next session, we'll try to do it on other screen elements as well. After that, I'll take up your doubts. But before that, you can see, if I go to message box, so there's a message box here. Message box contains methods here. You can see all these are the methods, but okay, so here, okay, you can see this. These are the methods. So you can see something like alert is one of the method. Confirm is one method. Error, you can see information. You can see show is also one of the method. And then you can see success method, which we have used. And you can see warning is another method. If you want, you can use it. Warning method. But technically, if you closely observe this, message box is a class. It's a static class. So you can directly access static class dot method name. Give some hint here. Why we are directly writing like this? Basically, either we have to create an object like this. Object equal to something like sap.m.message box. You can create an object for that class and you can call method like success here, basically. And here you can print that values. For example, user ID. Press something like last name or first name. By using new keyword. New keyword, we can create an object for so-and-so class. On that object, you can call the methods of that class, success, error, warning, whatever. But you need not create an object for this message box class because it's a static class. For static class, you can directly use class name dot method name. You need not create an object by using new keyword. You need not create an object by using new keyword to call the methods on that object. It's not required. Why? Because Message box is a static class. It contains all static methods. Success is a static method. So you can use class name dot method name in that case. So for example, in the coming days, we are going to use OData model class. In the coming days, we are going to use OData model class. OData model class is not a static class. It's not a static class. If it is not a static class, then we have to use like this: OData model object equal to new something like SAP UI model dot something like OData model class, something like this. And then on this object, let us make it simple. On this object, you can call some methods like create method or insert method or whatever. So OData model is a class, but it's not a static class. In that case, you have to create an object by using new keyword for so and so class. And then you can call the appropriate methods of that class. So if it is not a static class, then you have to create an object for that so and so class by using new keyword and then call the methods from the next line. Create method, remove method, update method, whatever, read method, etc. Object dot, you can use read method. Just as an example, I'm writing object dot something like update method, object dot remove method, something like this. So we have to create object by using new keyword for so and so class. If that class is not a static class, then on that object you can call the appropriate methods of that class, corresponding methods of that class. If the class is not a static method, static class, then you have to follow this. But in this case, for message box, you need not create an object here. Here we are using new keyword sap.m.message box. This is not required. An object, you need not call success method like this. This syntax is not required. Why? Because message box is a static class. So new keyword is not required. You need not create an object separately for that static class. That's the reason why you can directly call class name dot method name if the class is static class. So how to identify whether it is static or not? You can go to the documentation here. So in this case, if you closely observe, this documentation, it is clearly saying that there is a message box class. The library is sap.m. And it is also clearly saying that something like message box is a static class here. So you can see it provides easier methods to create something like that, but message box technically it's a static class. So that's the reason why you need not use new keyword to create an object for that class. Directly you can call the methods by using class name dot method name. Very simple, but very important, because there should not be any confusion while using different syntaxes. So let me write that here. Message box is a static class according to documentation. So we need not create an object by using, we need not create an object for that class using new keyword. It's not required. Just simply use class name dot method name. Very simple. Just simply use class name dot method name if the class is static class. Just remember that simple syntax so that there won't be any confusion going forward. Okay, so I'll stop here. In the next session, I'll discuss some more simple and important things. We'll try to deal with other skin elements when we capture the values. Then we can go for doubts for that entire chapter.